Gridiron Nation, I am back. George is in the studio. George is in the studio. People will understand what I mean here in a second. Sorry for the delay. I know things have been, kicked into like first gear. George, where's the content? You come out with a great TikTok clip, almost gets 1 million, and then you just disappear for a little bit. I work hard, people. I work hard. And I'm here with another hard worker. It proves, right, that if you're dedicated to this craft, you can make it a living. To my right, I have George Garcia in studio, host of MMA Junkie Radio. What's up, George?
Hello, George. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, just doing phenomenal. It's just another great... I didn't say today's date. Today is November 17th, 2022. I always like to try to date my episodes. So in case you're watching in the future, just know that our takes were still accurate.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Sammy the Squid because it's his birthday today. His name may come up later.
Sammy the Squid.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. So you primarily focus in the MMA world, correct?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been doing your show?
Since 2007, April of 2007, we started, I think it was the 11th, April 7th, 2011. And so we just celebrated 15 years earlier this year.
Amazing. Congratulations.
And we just celebrated our 3,300th show about a month ago.
Whoa.
So
were you a person that because I told people on my very first episode, I was like, I'm going to start I'm going to label the episodes 0001 to show the people that I'm going to hit 1,000 one day. Mm-hmm. Did you guys do that? Did you guys label your episodes like episode 1, episode 2, episode 3?
We did, but we didn't do the 001. And I'm not sure we thought we would go 1,000 shows when we started. But what I did know was after year 1, we would go 1,000 shows because we basically banked about 250 shows a year. We were daily and it was fun. And so I knew, okay, it only takes 4 years to get to 1,000. We'll get there. So I knew it, but not on day 1.
For sure. And so this was this your own passion project from the start? Or was this something where people were like, hey, there's this new form of broadcasting where people are, was it podcasting to start, or is it just a radio show?
It was podcasting to start.
Okay.
And in 2006, well, from about 2002 to 2006, another show called Sound Off on MMA Weekly, a website that's still around. I know the people there. Shout out to those guys.
Shout out.
They had a show called Sound Off, and they had a host called Ryan Bennett. Ryan Bennett was the guy that worked for an NBC affiliate in central coast of California, like San Luis Obispo. And a lot of people gravitated towards the website because it was only MMA Weekly, Full Contact Fighting, and SureDog. MMA Junkie didn't even exist yet. And so a lot of people really gravitated to Ryan because of his, he was a proper broadcaster. He did sports. And at the time, Chuck Liddell was the it guy, and he happened to live in San Luis Obispo. So he kind of had a relationship with Chuck. He had access to Chuck, and he was doing a daily show on a podcast. What he told me was, he passed away. What he told me once was that his neighbor, who also liked MMA, I guess was a tech guy. And he said, I think Ryan used to record shows and then just put the audio file on his website. Mm-hmm. And the guy told him, hey, I could probably get you on live. Apparently people are able to transmit a show on the internet. And so Ryan goes, I'm all ears. And that's what they started doing. So we would listen to his 1-hour show at 9 a.m., Monday through Friday, Pacific, live. And he picked up a guest fighter named Frank Trigg, good friend of John Orlando.
Right.
And so Frank had the gift of gab. I mean, he was a really, really good talker. Ryan and Frank did probably, I don't know if together they did 1,000 shows, but they reached 1,000. And then in May of 2006, after UFC 60, a few days after UFC 60, all of a sudden I log on to MMA Weekly because I used to listen to the show. I used to call into the show. And I listened in, and I found out that Ryan had passed away in a highway accident.
Oh, tragic.
Yeah. And so, dude, I cried. Like that was
that's
my thing.
Yeah.
I used to play internet poker. I had quit corporate America, and I used to play internet poker and watch and listen to Ryan. So I kind of had a little bit of a routine. And when I logged on, because he had a real cool chat room, I just remember people saying, "Oh my God, this can't be. It's got to be fake. You know, are you sure he survived?" All that. And I remember, George, that the night before I had logged on MMA Weekly, and they had some popular forums, and somebody had posted something about Ryan Bennett crash accident, right? But I was like nodding off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of like, I don't know if I clicked it or I just thought, you know, people were big time trolls back then. And I guess they are now. And as soon as I saw that on the chat room, I thought to that story, I go, oh my God. So I already knew this was probably true, and it turned out to be true. And so by then I had forged a friendship with Frank Trigg, and about 6 months after Ryan had passed away, myself and Goes, my brother, we had breakfast with Frank one day, and we said, "Hey, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna bring back the show or what? You know?" So again, 6 months later, you know, I felt like that was enough time to mourn, and
Definitely.
you know, it's not like we were asking him at the funeral, "Hey, what's next?"
Right.
And he goes, "I don't know. I've had a few opportunities, this, that, whatever." And my brother goes, "Why don't you do it?" And now I was just a fanboy, right?
Right.
And I go, "Me? Man, I could never do that." And then as I've done a lot in my life, I always remind myself that I can do anything. So as soon as I said it, as I was ending that, I thought, yeah, I could do this, you know? I may suck, but I can do it.
Yep.
And I was looking to do something because internet poker was starting to not be as lucrative as it was, because that was the Chris Moneymaker era.
Ooh.
Do you remember that? Are you a poker guy?
I do not. No.
Okay, so in sometime in like 2002, 2003, Chris Moneymaker was an internet guy, and he won the World Series of fighting.
Poker?
World Series of Poker. And he became a big household name, but he basically just had a great run. I'm sure he was a decent player, probably one of the best players amongst his friends.
For sure.
But when you mix it up with these, you know, you need a little bit of luck and a little bit of talent. He just got hot. And so Chris Moneymaker, you know, everybody saw that and they thought, holy cow, I can win one of those bracelets. And so people started playing. People would have home games, all that stuff. People were logging on to Party Poker, Full Tilt Poker, everything, and playing. And so that's what I would do. And I was pretty good at it, right? Because I was a pretty good poker player. But then you start realizing you can't read somebody, body language, their eyes, their tells, because they're online. And online, it's more of a mathematics game.
Right.
All right.
Probability.
And so
is huge.
I realized I was losing probably to Russians, Scandinavians, 13-year-old, 12-year-old, 20-year-old that just had gigantic balls, and their parents were the ones that were just giving them the money, and they were going in, and I mean, all in, like, holy cow, you know. So I couldn't adapt to the game as much. So what used to be one of those where I could win like a tournament a day, like just a sit and goes, 10 people, I was starting now to take more second places and third places. And I realized, okay, this money's going to start to go, because I had made some money.
How much was like a payout for an average tournament?
So it depends, because you could play 25 times 10, that's 250. First place would get 70% of it, 20% and 10%. So yeah, I guess 250, 175, I guess would go to the winner. 50 would go to second place, and 25 to third,
and
right?
how quick are those games?
Oh, they're pretty fast. The sit and goes are the best, right?
Gotcha.
And so when you paid your 25 plus 10%, 250. And they just dealt you the cards online, you know? And so you're playing and all that, and then every once in a while you're like, you know what, I'm going to do 100. So 100 times 10 is 1,000. First place gets 700. Second place gets 200, and last place gets third. But this time it costs you 10 to get in. So the system always made their money, right? And they just distributed. And you win enough of them that you're like, okay, this thing isn't rigged. You know, this thing's good. But again, I started going from first and second and third to now second and third to now, oof, lucky I got third. And I was starting to lose more. And that coincided with this thing happening with the show. And I knew I was looking to do something different.
So you say the poker game isn't working out for you. Then you have that realization that, hey, I could do this regardless of whether it's good or not. Now, how instrumental was it, like your brother, in setting all this up? Was he like a part of it at first? I know he had mentioned it, but has he been a part of it since the jump?
Since the jump. So my brother, he said, I'll produce it. And my brother's always been pretty savvy with the computer stuff, but yet not like on the level of Austin and
shout out to Austin
Travis
back
or
there.
whatever. Yes, of course. But he was always kind of like the go-to in our home, maybe amongst our neighbors. He knew some stuff. And so what he knew was, A, I know MMA, and B, I'll just kind of hang back. But my brother at the time, when MySpace was popular, you remember MySpace?
Yeah. I never used it.
It was
I
before
was in
Facebook blew up.
Yeah.
So my brother was the infamous Goes from MySpace. And he was one of the top 10 bloggers on MySpace.
No way.
so
He
he
has
had-
clout?
He had a big following, right? And so a lot of those were from the MMA world as well. So right away we knew, well, between Trig's audience and the MMA Weekly or whoever, maybe those listeners, and Goes, and then just us organically promoting it, we could have a base to start this and try it out.
For sure.
And that was the plan, was like, let's just try it out and do it daily again. Trig wanted to do it daily. And we'll see where it goes. And that's kind of when we're off and running.
Yeah, no, I had similar type. I mean, you were listening at first too, and I think that's like how a lot of these things start. And like I see myself as a pioneer for like the younger people in showing that, hey, like this can be your reality a lot faster than you can think. Obviously, I got blessed by Sticky Paws and being able to see it through, but I've always listened to sports talk radio. I always knew I wanted to be the person that people were listening to, kind of have that same effect. You said you cried when you heard that host died. How big of a following do you have now? And, you know, how crushed would people be if MMA Junkie Radio were to stop today?
Well, how big? What was the first part?
I was like, how big of a following do you guys have right now? Like,
well, once we went with MMA Junkie, like myself and Goes really aren't like phenomenons on the social media. You know, I think I have 20,000 on
That's
Twitter.
still, yeah.
3,000 on Instagram, whatever.
For sure.
And my brother probably has maybe half on each one, right? The show's probably equivalent to what I do. But MMA Junkie has millions of readers to the site, 1.2 million on Instagram and you know, all that YouTube. That's pretty loaded, right?
For sure.
And now how many what'd you say? Cry if I passed away?
Yeah, or it just stopped, you know?
Well, I would hope I'd hope they'd at least say, "Oh, shucks," you know. That's a bummer, you know. I don't know if I could evoke that type of emotion from them. But what it was mostly, George, was it's just something that became a habit, and it was a core group of at least 50 in the chat room, and then whatever listeners that he had, and we all kind of knew each other. But here's what made it special. Ryan, when the UFC was often in either Las Vegas or in the LA area, Anaheim area, he would say, "Hey guys, I'm going to do the show on the road. I'm going to be at we'll say the Anaheim Hilton, room 802. Stop by and say hello." And they would have a little, his setup back then was he had his headphone, he had his laptop, and then he had the hardwire connection.
Yeah.
And Trig would call from his cell phone and put himself on speaker.
Oh my God.
Right? And so that he would hold the speaker up to his
The
laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then Ryan would also call fighters three-way, and that's how they would get them on. So it wasn't something that was super elaborate. So on one of those occasions, Goes and I went, and when we were there, he was like, "Man, so-and-so was supposed to show up, but he hasn't shown up." "Well, I saw this other guy in the lobby." I told him, you know. He goes, "Can you see if you can get him?" Yeah. And he's continuing to host the show. And so I'd go down to the lobby and I'd run into like 2 or 3 fighters and bring them all up. And at that time, those fighters, they weren't getting attention from Fox, CBS, ESPN, only the websites. So they're like, "Hell yeah, MMA Weekly sound off. I'll do it." So then they'd come up, we'd bring them up to the studio. And he was
Hotel
so
room.
thankful, you know, or hotel room. And he was so thankful
Studio
for
at
it.
the
And he made you feel like you were a part of the show. And that's what we wanted to carry. And that's why our show had to be a call-in show, because people could call in, express their thoughts on the fights that happened, on the fights that were coming up, on the current news. And a few of them also kind of had a little bit of following because a lot of them were really funny, passionate. I used to call in the Jim Rome show years ago. It was called The Jungle, you know?
Oh, shit.
So same thing. We were trying to create a little bit of that vibe, you know? But by now, the internet is worldwide. Jim Rome show was just based in San Diego, and then he grew affiliates all over the country. But our show was worldwide. So you could have a guy from Scotland calling in, or
That's sick.
or Brazil or United
Or
States.
Ben Askren in studio like we've had here.
Oh,
I was holding up though, George's not to shameless plug, but I do have the MMA Junkie app on my phone.
Oh, there's even an app.
There is an
Austin
app.
would be crushed. He loves you guys too, by the way. Like, I think you've thoroughly taken a liking into this whole MMA.
Well, I would
always
cry
loved
if I found out Austin passed away.
I mean, I think we all would. I think it would just be a
Stop! My head can only get so big.
Yeah.
That was a tough question to ask you. I mean, there's some things in life in which when it happens to you, it invokes something inside of you that's like, I have to do that now. I don't know why, but I'm just shifting everything that I'm doing to eventually lead up to that. I think crying is like one of the main things.
Well, you know, I don't know what it was, and I thought it was kind of a little bit bizarre, but I remember walking out to my front lawn, and you know, I was just like, holy cow. Like, I remember I used to call it my show. Not that I was the host or anything.
Yeah.
But when people would go, what are you doing? I wouldn't say, oh, I'm listening to this show or whatever. I'd go, I always tell them, I'm listening to my show. And I felt like it was mine because it was like, not too many people knew about it, but it was about something that I loved, which was MMA. And I felt involved because I was a caller, you know? So when I would call in, like the chat room would say, Gorgeous George, you know, or whatever. And I would call in and say whatever I had to say. And then like another guy, Rick from New York, Sam from Pennsylvania, whoever, they'd call in and everybody just kind of rooted for each other. And again, the host had no ego. He gave you a platform. He didn't make you feel like, oh, this bozo's calling in again, you know?
Gotcha.
Now Trig would do that. Trig would smash you.
You got to have that little co-host back and forth sometimes. Yeah, I mean, it's healthy.
It was fun though, man. It was fun. And then when we would all get together and he'd post it on the internet, everybody liked it because you really felt a part of it. And you could touch the fighters. And by that, I mean like not literally, but in other words, that fighter would have a conversation with you. You know, like if you go to the Staples Center and you go, LeBron, come here, take a picture or an autograph or something. Man, he's got his glasses on, his headphones. You're getting no attention. He might hear 100 people say LeBron at the same time and he might just turn and wave. But that's it.
Right.
And in MMA, they'd go, what are you guys doing after? You guys going to grab breakfast or whatever? Because this sport was being born under our eyes. And so they loved the accessibility. We love the accessibility.
I would say it still exists now.
A little bit.
And I would, I mean, I don't know if it's just we're so close to the UFC Performance Institute, and so we've seen so many fighters, but they're all people that are just genuine. All they do all day is just train. So they have a shit ton of free time, if I'm being honest. But and then they're gearing it towards being here at Sticky Paws. Shout out to Sticky Paws again, because they understand the world that we live in with this whole social media shit. Now, the world that I never lived in was a world of like when people had to bet with bookies. You, at a point in time, you were dealing with some of that space. Do you have any like crazy stories that you can like elaborate on, like what you were doing and like, you know, what that feels like that's a lot of pressure, dude.
I've never really talked too much about this, but I've dropped hints on our show. And I think some people have put the 2 and 2s together. And I think some of my personal friends who've talked to some of our wound up being listeners.
For sure.
They joke enough about it that I think a lot of people have kind of captured it or whatever. Right. But yeah, I did used to take bets. And I did it since the early 90s. And the reason I did it is because I got in a hole with Sammy the Squid. So Sammy the Squid was pretty much one of my best buddies in the high school era. Okay. I got a lot of best friends, right? Gotcha. From different eras. But Sammy, or his real name is, I'm just going to leave him at Sammy the Squid. I don't know if he wants this shit out.
Yeah, Sammy the Squid.
But Sammy the Squid, him and I went to high school together, and we lived close together. And so we partied together and had a few classes. So anyway, we get a little bit older, and some Italian guy was taking bets from us. There was a miscommunication on a bet that was their fault, And luckily they used to record their phone calls. So I was right and they were wrong. But either way, we still agreed on a number that was higher than what we anticipated. So I got to give Sammy the Squid the credit. He's the one that said, hey, why don't we take bets? Because I think he gave us 2 weeks to pay.
Oh, shit.
And he goes, why don't we take bets for 2 weeks and let's see if we can make that money?
Right.
Because obviously we've been losing lately. So these casinos don't get built because the people
they
win.
were fucking winning.
And I go, okay, whatever. So our buddies would call us to tell us who they wanted. And whereas we would usually call the Italian guy and say, this is what we want.
Yeah.
All of these bets. We didn't do that. But we would tell our buddies, you're in. Right? And luckily, what they lost that week was enough to pay that guy. And it still left us like with a kitty of about, we'll call it 800 maybe. So we were like high-fiving. This was a few years after high school, so 800 was a lot for us.
No, seriously. Yeah.
And we thought, hey, let's just do it a few more weeks. And we did. And it grew up to like another maybe 1,000. And so we're like, why are we even calling this guy? Like, let's just do this. But it's not easy back then.
Dude, I was about to say.
Now you just go on a website and go, and that's it, right? But before you had to sit on a call. They'd answer. You'd give your code. And then you'd say, okay, what's the rundown? Lakers -7. Memphis -6.5. What's the total? 184.5. New York Knicks -8. Boston, this, that, whatever. You get to go through the whole rundown and the totals, right? And then they'd go, okay. Some guys would go, I'm ready. Give me this and parlay this, and you write everything down, Or they'd say, I'll call you back, and then they'd be a little bit more organized, right? And as soon as you hung up, the next guy. As soon as you hung up, the next guy. Because you only had call waiting, and that was it. And so you would just kind of do that stuff, and that was basically part of my life.
How do the odds? That's the part that's always gotten me. Are you just setting whatever you felt like was your own odds, or were you using like? You see a sports line and you're like,
here's the funny
is what
thing.
We're fucking running with?
No, here's the funny thing was one website that bailed us out was scoresandodds.com.
Okay.
It's still around. But that site, I don't think I had a computer till 96 or 95. That's like when the internet was kicking off, with AOL and all that shit. So what we would do is the newspaper had it, luckily.
Ooh.
And so you always had to have a newspaper on you. And then you always had to add a couple clean sheets of paper and some pens, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you would basically read it off the paper to them, right? Now, granted, if you have a little bit of time, you kind of open a notebook and kind of clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And all that, because it was, you're not going to be flipping pages.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how we did it, basically. Whoa. So it was kind of like old school techniques back then.
Damn. And was there ever would you watch the games? Because that would be another thing, right? There's taking it in and knowing the stress behind it, but then there's like giving yourself the heart attack of watching some of the games and knowing like, fuck, he hits this 3 here, we're in some big trouble. Would you watch the games?
Yes. Now, I won't tell you how long I did it, but I did it for a while. And when the early part of my run of doing this, I did watch the games. I was into it.
Yeah.
And it was stressful for sure because we weren't organized at all. And that plus 1,800 could easily become minus 2,400.
Right.
And then what are you going to do? Because if you don't pay, you lose your credibility. You know what I mean? You always have to pay, and that's how you keep those customers, and that's how those customers tell other guys, these are good guys. So it was pretty stressful. We would watch them. And it's funny because, again, I'm dating back to starting with the early 90s, mid 90s. It wasn't now like where sports bars, the TVs are everywhere. So back then you'd have maybe one game on your TV.
And the ticker?
Oh, fuck. Yes. The old,
Can you imagine
it was
writing out the ticker? You're just like, shit, no. That just said Chicago. We got to wait for
I don't even think it was ESPN. I think it was CNN. We had the ticker. And then, so you're sitting there, right?
Shit.
Did you ever watch the movie Carlito's Way? No, not Bronx Tale.
No.
Oh, you're killing me, George. Fuck. Bronx Tale is a gangster movie, right?
Okay.
But in that movie, there's a character named Mush, Eddie Mush. Eddie Mush lost everything. Now, there's one scene where they're at the track meet, and all the gangsters are like, they bet on, I think, a horse called Kryptonite. And they're like, come on, Kryptonite. Let's go, Kryptonite. And apparently he's got like a big old lead, you know, and they're all high-fiving. Bring it home, baby, because they're on the home stretch.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Eddie Mush is coming down the stairs. Come on, Kryptonite, let's go, Kryptonite. And the gangsters saw that. They go, oh, man, we've been mushed. You ever heard that term? Mush?
Yes.
That's where it comes from.
Oh, wow.
And so what they do then is immediately Sonny, the leader of that pack, he just grabs everyone's tickets and rips them. And one of the young guys is like, what are you doing, Sonny? We got a lead. He goes, we can't win. We've been mushed. And sure enough, another horse comes up and beats Kryptonite, you know? And anyway, he kept going, come on, Kryptonite, come on. Hang in there. Hang in there. That's what Eddie Mush is saying, right? And it's funny because when we would watch the scores, we'd watch our game. We'll say Ohio State, Michigan, but there's big money on Pittsburgh or Iowa or something. And the way CNN would do it is they would do it by conference. And so then you're sitting there, right? And they would say like USC, UCLA, Washington. Okay, that's the Pac-10. Now maybe Oklahoma, Texas
Big
Tech,
10.
Big 10. Oh, here comes the
Big 12.
that was a Big 12. Yeah. Here comes the Big 10.
Yep.
You know, and so now it's like West Virginia or Northwestern, and we're like, hang in there, because you could hear the news guy going, all right, so when we come after the break, we are going to talk about the weather or whatever, and you're like, hang in there, you know, and all of a sudden, there's Eddie Mush right there. All of a sudden, it would go to commercial, and you wouldn't get the score. Oh, so you had to wait again. You had to wait till they came back.
Mushed.
And then you're like, oh my God, here we go. There's USC, there's UCLA. So it literally took you about 5 minutes to get that score you wanted. We had no cell phones. You did have one place you could call, and I remember it was a guy named Jack Price, and he'd go, hey, what's up, man? I'm Jack Price. I'm 90-1 in the last 2 weeks. Give me $200 and I'll give you all the best plays, you know? And then
man, they have not changed.
No, it hasn't. It's all the same.
You hit a button.
They're all the same.
And you're like, no, I don't want those. Just give me the scores. And then it was some guy that was fast. And so that guy would go, Iowa's beating Pittsburgh in the second quarter, 14-13. TCU's beating this guy. So you're like, what is he saying? What is he saying? And you're trying to write it down.
Austin, this is so fucking funny. Like you guys are thinking about workflow and efficiency at a time where it was just like
you had no means to do it.
This is when we were like
it was so bad.
Just out of high school and college. So we were partying, bro. You know, like a Friday night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., drunk, you know. And then one of us knew we had to wake up at 8 a.m., get the newspaper, grab some coffee, have your pens and sheets ready.
What a life.
To do this.
That's awesome.
One or the other, me or the squid had to do it. You know what I mean? And one of us usually had a headache and we're begging the other guy to do it. And so we went through that shit. And man, we wrote on pizza boxes, paper plates, because we weren't organized. You know, so it's like, give me something, man. Just
hey, pass that paper plate. The paper plate.
Yeah,
had the
and you just write it. You just write Showtime or
Boy,
whatever.
I got a website for you called Monday.com if I've ever heard somebody that needs it.
Dude,
trust me, man.
Back in the day.
So that's what I told you. I mean, we can go on forever with those types of stories, but that it was really, really tough back then. And
so funny.
Now, later on, right before I stopped doing this, I had reached a point where I didn't have to watch the games. And I still have friends that do this. And I tell them, I'm telling you, you'll be more at peace if you just go golf for 5 hours or go be with your family. You watching it ain't gonna change it. But then some of those guys tell me, man, I just live for it. It's in me. I'm not gonna change. And that's true. As I've gotten older, it's tough to change people. But like I tell them, just try it a few times. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The scores aren't changing. And nowadays it's easier because nowadays you just go, here's the website, make your bets, we'll settle up in a week or whatever. You ain't doing shit.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So all you're doing is sitting there drinking and watching. It's not like you're taking them or nothing like that.
Yeah, I know.
But I found that when I did that more, and then I also bet less, and I treated it more like a business, and I had notebooks, organizations, spreadsheets or whatever, and I would stay on top of it. That's when all of a sudden I started doing better.
Makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. But that's some good insight there. Would you mind if we do a new segment presented by Sticky Paw Studios?
Yes.
Since we are very workflow oriented, you are a 49ers fan. The 49ers were in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. What do the 49ers need to do to get to the Super Bowl this year? If you're the GM, are there any moves? What do you want to see the team do?
You know, the one that jumps out for sure is stay healthy. But everybody that listens to Gridiron Junkies has their own favorite team, and they're going, yeah, well, duh, so do we. But I'm telling you, we've been ravaged. I don't know if other teams get ravaged like we do, but we have been ravaged with injuries. Now, that said, last year we were 3-5 and we went to the Super Bowl. This year I believe we were 3-5, and now I believe we're
you guys just
5-4 now.
Yes,
something like that.
5-4.
So guess what? It's reminding me of what happened last year, right? We are starting to get healthy. We just got Deebo Samuel back. Christian McCaffrey, who was kind of hurt last year and then earlier this year for Carolina, he's playing for us. He's staying healthy. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's staying healthy. George Kittle's been healthy. Nick Bosa's been healthy. We did have a couple DBs that are out for the year.
Yeah.
And that kind of hurt because we've always sucked at DBs. Not always, but lately.
For sure.
So finally, when we had some great DBs, all of a sudden it's like, we're running with second string corners.
You guys have the second coming of Troy Polamalu on your team. That Afualu guy.
Tafanga or someone.
Yeah, Tafanga. Yeah. There we go. There it is. Tafanga.
He's awesome, safety. Man. He's from USC.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit. Okay. So that's your favorite college team, right?
Yes, sir.
Fuck. You are a Southern California. Well, the Bay Area. How'd that come about? How are we not a Raiders fan?
Well, they're
a Rams
Vegas.
fan.
I know. I'm just kidding. All right. So I did start off as a Rams fan because they played like 10 minutes away from us. But like in '79, they went to the Super Bowl, and the following year, they had what's called a holdout because Vince Ferragamo was their quarterback, and they had a holdout or whatever, and that kind of really turned me off. Around that time, or maybe just before, their owner Carol Rosenblum was a man. Carol, he passed away. Georgia Rosenblum, his wife, took it over. Georgia became Georgia Frontiere, who was the owner of the Rams, right? And I'm telling you, where they sucked was holdouts, constant holdouts. Shit. Right? Now,
that's
at the
annoying.
same time,
that's for sure annoying.
I loved O.J. Simpson because I was a USC guy.
Didn't every single
this
white
is before,
woman?
Now, did he do it?
This is before O.J. partook in other activities.
Oh, so you're saying he did it?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Pretty obvious. I think almost he said it, but
his book, If I Had Done It.
Yeah. So anyway, I really loved O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson comes to the 49ers in 79 or 80. And Joe Montana, who was a Notre Dame guy.
Yeah.
And tuned us up a couple times. I was like, man, I wish we had him. And he went to the Niners. Ronnie Lott went to the Niners. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to root for the Niners because these Rams just don't have their act together. Super Bowl team. And there was there was always these holdouts, you know? Even Eric Dickerson, I don't know if you remember him, another holdout. It was constant holdouts. And so we were just a team that was tight with their money, didn't pay. And in San Francisco, you could tell the owner back then, Edward DeBartolo Jr., who got in some trouble later in his years, that guy would do anything to make his team win. And that's what I liked about it. And so what wound up happening was I wound up sticking with him. Now, the Raiders had a run in LA in the 80s where I was kind of watching them. I see you, because I really like the local teams.
For sure.
And Marcus Allen, who's one of my favorite players too, he was with them, another USC guy.
Yep.
So I won't lie, I probably rooted for them a little bit, but by then I think I had established the Niners were my team, and even though you still root for a few other teams, this was my squad.
It's funny you say that. I'm a little reversed than you. Like, you said that Joe Montana coming from Notre Dame kind of like imprinted that on you. I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I became a Saints fan because of Reggie Bush. Like,
how about that?
I watched Reggie Bush tune up fucking the Notre Dame year after year after year, and then I was
that can happen.
That's
like
that dude's awesome.
I hated Larry Bird, but I wished we had him.
Right.
When I was a Laker fan, I hated Michael Irvin, but I wish we had him. Not necessarily because we needed him, because we had Jerry Rice, but I loved his passion.
Right.
You know what I mean? And sometimes
the
you see some of the guys.
Yeah,
the swagger. Because I used to follow him at Miami of Florida, and then with the Cowboys. So, there's a few that play for other teams where you're like, you can't stand the other team, but you respect a few of their cats.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I'm going to do another new segment presented by the Truly Bizarre podcast. That's the podcast, the show, YouTube channel that Austin, our engineer, has. So I'm going to show you a bizarre play from a couple of weeks ago. I want you to.
Is that the one where they hunt down the Loch Ness monster or something like that?
Yeah.
I didn't do any hunting, but yes,
he
saw
is
that.
putting out a reward. If I didn't make it, you said $10,000.
Yeah, I will
bring back. The
I
Loch
will
Ness
bring
monster.
$10,000 to you if you bring me the Loch Ness monster to here to Sticky Paw Studios. Now that
Austin,
does not
Austin.
mean
To
send
bring
Houston.
you the actual Loch Ness monster?
I don't have.
Yeah.
You think I have $10,000 just laying around?
Well, you know how difficult it'd be to just find the Loch Ness monster?
There you
Much
go.
less to
That'll
bring
give
him
me
here?
enough time to get the 10 grand.
You
Austin,
might as well offer him 10 million because it ain't gonna happen.
I will double that. I'll double that. I'm going to double that 10,000.
I'll chip in 10 million if you bring the Loch Ness monster.
He's going to chip it. So now we're at 10
$10 and 20,000.
2,000. 10 million, 2,000. Oh, 20,000. You're right. Double that. Should we double that? Fuck that.
I think John
Play the
Orlando said
goddamn
100
clip.
mil.
Play the clip. Play the clip. This is a bizarre play that happened a couple of weeks ago. I want you to see the offensive lineman
his own guy.
knocks out his own guy.
Wow.
Have you ever seen that? Where a football player tackles his own player.
I probably have. I've watched
As
so
a
much
Niners
football
fan, you should.
that I have. I just can't recall a specific incident, especially if it didn't involve famous players. And I just can't seem to think of
There
one.
was I wasn't alive for this because I was born in '97, but my dad, who is a Chargers fan, told me when we played the Niners in the Super Bowl in '94, two of our players ran into each other like two safeties.
Oh shit! And probably left him wide open.
One of the more famous plays, the Immaculate Conception, or
The Immaculate
Reception.
Catch. Yeah.
I think some Pittsburgh guys and Oakland guys collide. The ball pops up, and Franco Harris catches it and scores on Oakland, and they go to the Super Bowl. That's a
Right.
big play. I just can't remember if it was two Oakland players or what, but I know there was a collision between players that made the ball pop out.
It was two Oakland players meeting at the
Was
ball.
it?
And
There you go.
And it popped backwards. But no. So that shit happens all the time. Shout out to the Truly Bizarre. Make sure you guys watch them for all of your myths and lure, I don't know, fetishes. Is that would be the best way to describe that?
I'm gonna start calling it that, but no, it's for all your cryptid and conspiracy theory.
I saw the
needs.
most recent
Yes.
one, something having to do with goats, or
The Goat Man.
the Goat Man.
I think Tom Brady will turn into the Goat Man. After watching that episode of his, the way they talk about the way that he looks.
Tom Brady's already the GOAT.
Yeah.
I think they say, right?
Just not with wives.
No, she's already moved on. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, dude. Now she's fucking
That
a
kind of sucks.
jiu-jitsu instructor.
That kind of sucks. I think you should take your time with that when you're famous.
Nah.
I mean,
Not that Tom Brady cares. I mean, maybe he does.
He definitely
It's
cares.
not like he does. It's not like he can't just walk out into Tampa and get some tail, right?
Oh, no
However, they got kids,
Yeah.
and that I don't know that's that great of a look for
Like how
already moving on that.
How does the kid you gotta kind of keep that shit under wraps? Like I didn't see the pictures of Giselle but they're on the beach in Brazil or some shit.
Yeah, because if we just rewind,
fuck.
remember in preseason, Tom was spending time with the family. Mm-hmm. So literally 4 months ago, they're a family. Then all of a sudden they go through this quick divorce, and all of a sudden she's moved on and she's willing to put it out there. I don't know about that one. Tom's okay. He's a big boy, but I don't know about her, man.
He's 2-0 since the divorce has been finalized. So he's winning the divorce currently. If he wins a Super Bowl ring, that's the ultimate fuck you to Giselle. Now that's the best movie of all time. He left New England. He goes and wins in Tampa. He gets a divorce. He gets another fucking ring. And I think, and I hate.
And another supermodel?
Dude, he could have whoever he wants. I would like to see him with a black girl though. I would like to
Travis Kelce?
throw us off a little bit.
Does Travis Kelce have a black girlfriend?
Yeah, Travis Kelce is invited to the cookout.
Travis Kelce's invited to the cookout.
Well,
no, I
who
just think
are
it would be.
who are the hot available black gals? Right
I think Halle Berry would be a good choice
Aren't
for
they
him.
in the
she's
same age?
53 or something, 52. She's about my age.
Yeah, but I don't think Tom's into the younger. I
more
think he's
about the
fuck that.
prestige.
Yeah. I mean, he was dating a girl that left him in 4
It's
months.
more about the reckoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He definitely needs to one up her, right? Jiu-jitsu instructor. You can't do anything less than.
Yeah, that's.
He should get with the guy
middle
that
of the
beats
road.
that jiu-jitsu instructor.
He should go gay for that guy.
Yeah. Whoever beats the jiu-jitsu instructor, that's who Tom Brady's
Whoever
new.
knocked him out.
Did you guys ever see the movie Tombstone?
No.
Oh, because they
Not
bring
in a
up-
long time.
They bring up the reckoning. That's why when I said it and you kind of smiled, I was like, oh, he gets it.
The
Okay.
reckoning. I mean, I just know
The
it.
reckoning would be it's the you become a legend because
Got you.
so you're not doing it for the money or for some, you're doing it for the reckoning. So
Okay.
if he were to get Halle Berry and someone were to go, well, you know, there's like a 33-year-old supermodel. Why didn't you get her? Well, no one knows her. Everyone knows Halle.
That's doing it for the
So I'm doing it for the reckoning. You know, like
Okay.
that's lifting my legendary status.
I feel it now.
Yeah.
Now the very last new segment that I'm going to do for us today is I see that you have a lot of sports knowledge. I want to tell you a modern day player, and I want you to tell me who they remind you of. All right?
Yeah.
Let's start with Derrick Henry.
I mentioned him earlier. Eric Dickerson, and I'll tell you why. Because Eric Dickerson, Derrick Henry's about 6'3", right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's big, and he runs kind of upright a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's how Eric Dickerson was. Eric Dickerson played for the LA Rams when they were in Anaheim. And he happened to live at a place called the Aspens, which was close to where we used to go ball all the time. So a few times we saw him. And he was tall. He's from SMU. He was tall, and he ran kind of upright like that. Now, he wasn't as thick as Derrick Henry.
For sure.
But it's the way they run kind of upright, kind of being taller, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely
I would say
stiff.
Eric Dickerson is one guy. Now, the way Derrick Henry runs over people, I guess now I probably would think of guys like Earl Campbell or whatever. But see, he was more of a compact guy, I would say.
For sure, because Derrick Henry still has a little bit of that finesse to him.
Yes.
That would be a good hybrid, right?
Mhm.
Now let's go with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy Garoppolo, who would be a good comparison to him?
He is not as bad as people think.
Well, he's a winner. He's got a good regular season record.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the playoffs he's
He's gone to
3-2 or something
NFC
like that.
Championship.
I think, and he's got away games wins.
Twice.
So, you know, when you can win playoff games, that's a big deal. Dak Prescott, I think, is 0-4 in
Yeah.
playoff games.
Fucking weak.
You know what I mean? So he gets paid a lot of money, and it's not that he's not good, but you're going to be judged on your playoff wins.
Mm-hmm.
But Jimmy Garoppolo's a little bit different because Jimmy Garoppolo is not big. He's like 6'1", 210, I think. And that's why he gets hurt a lot. The first guy I thought about was a guy you're probably not going to remember, but he was a quarterback for the Vikings named Tommy Kramer. He just wasn't big, but he was a gamer. He was tough.
Was that back in the Chris Carter days?
Probably before that.
Gotcha.
Now, if you think about it, Aaron Rodgers is similar to Garoppolo in stature. He's not a big guy.
Right.
But that dude's a superstar. That's why I won't put him in the same sentence.
For sure.
But the build is the same. Now, Garoppolo doesn't have a strong arm. The other day, he threw a 10 and out, and I thought the Charger guy was going to take it to the house. That thing just floated so slow.
You're just like,
And it got to him, you know, but I thought for sure he was going to get picked. He doesn't have a strong arm.
for sure. Okay.
But he's a winner. He finds ways to win. He's just, I don't know, he's not always the most clutch guy. He's a little inconsistent in that department. That's why San Francisco did all those trades to get Trey Lance.
That is true. And I don't like Trey Lance at all. I thought when I was asking that GM question, you might say like, fucking get rid, like, let's buy into Jimmy G. I didn't understand that part, but we'll move on to the next
I think
player.
because he was fragile and not always clutch, and that's not a good combination.
People are so harsh. I know it's your own team.
Well, he was out for a
It's-
whole year one time,
correct.
but he just picks up these little injuries, man. He's just not a built guy. And I think with the game's changing a little bit. The running quarterback's so important, and
Very true.
And I think Shanahan saw something in Trey Lance. You know, he was
a
ready
little
to,
bit of like
to move
scrambling.
on.
Yeah.
And this guy gets paid a lot of money too.
True.
What's his name? The guy from Minnesota right now, Kirk Cousins,
Yeah.
has a similar build to this guy, but he doesn't seem to get his hurt as much. But
They're very much in the same range for me too.
yeah,
Kirk Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo, one in the same.
yeah,
Let's go to George Kittle.
man.
Physical blocker.
He's not like Gronk or Kelsey, where they're like 6'5" monsters.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a little more slender.
He is a little bit more slender. So I'm going to tell you what I like about Kittle, and that'll buy me time to find a tight end to compare him to. But what I do love about him, and what he brings toughness to our team, and I don't know if you know this or not, he loves to block.
Yes.
Most tight ends want to chip someone, go out, catch the ball, and score touchdowns, right? Most tight ends. He gets off on blocking, and he gets off on blocking downfield. A lot of guys, again, let's say they're running it or they're throwing it, and they block them, and then you see two guys kind of like do the tango. They just hold each other like we're not involved in the play. No, he's trying to drive you. He's trying to drive you 10 yards down the field and then push you down into the ground. That's become contagious with the Niners. And now other receivers are doing the same thing, and they're all high-fiving each other, and it all started with George Kittle. Yeah.
So I'll give you a comparison. I'm thinking Dallas Clark. Old Colts tight end, 44, never used to wear gloves.
I don't remember him too well.
No. He was in the similar vein.
Maybe Jay Novacek from the Cowboys a little bit. He was only about 6'3", and I think that's about what Kittle's size is.
For sure. He blocking of Jason Witten, but he's faster than Jason Witten.
Yes, correct.
Yep. Okay. Christian McCaffrey. I heard a funny comparison on this one, and this will be the last one.
Does he have to be white?
No, he doesn't have to be white.
Okay, so I really like the guy named Meggett, Dave Meggett. He played for like the Giants, Philly, I believe. And so he wasn't like 1,000-yard rusher, but he was more like every down back. Is that what he called?
Yeah.
So you could give it to him, and he can get you a few yards. But where he was more dangerous was, like
those little
on screens,
yep,
or misdirections, because he was just quick, reliable, dependable. He won't miss a block in case somebody blitzes. He knows the playbook, but at the same time, you can't rush him 30 times, otherwise he's going to get hurt.
For sure.
Maybe Ricky Waters, except Ricky Waters was bigger, but Ricky Waters, again, could run it or catch. He was a threat in many ways.
Yep. And you guys...
He played for Notre Dame, Ricky Waters.
Really?
Yeah, like 89, 88.
I'm going to make clips of this, so like I'll show comparison. I'll do a little side-by-side, so we'll see how good you did. We'll see what the people think. George, it's been a pleasure sitting down talking with you today. It's been a pleasure to get back in the groove. There was no better way to do like my first podcast back in studio. I think it's been like a week and a half. It's a long time for me because I usually go.
Been a week and a half?
Yeah, since I recorded one.
But why are we ending, man? Let's give him another 5 minutes.
Do you have any other crazy
I have
stories?
a good story for you that I think I'm ready to finally come clean on.
Oh, shit.
Because I think what I'll do is I'll wind up forwarding this to my buddy. Sammy the Squid and I, we had a bookie ourselves, right? That's why we weren't successful early on, because we gambled our winnings. So whatever we won, we would kind of turn over to the next guy. On this one occasion, him and I got in a hole, and we were probably down like 3,000 or 4,000. That's what we were gonna have to give the guy the following Friday.
Gotcha.
I'm just gonna call him BR, right? And so we were like, dude, what are we gonna do? Because we didn't have $3,000 or $4,000,
right?
But we didn't want to go on the payment plan. So we were like, what do we do? And Squid was having a birthday at his house, and everybody was invited to that house. So what we did was we did one final, like 500 on this team, 500 on that team, 500 on the other team, and then round robin all of them, and then I think even a 3-teamer. And what this was going to do was just kind of get the debt manageable to like maybe down 800, or so we'd each come up with 400 and just pay the guy, right?
For sure.
But what we did was we told him that we did the opposite. So we bet it with him, but I think we told him that someone else had put it in, and that we needed help booking that bet.
Right.
So every time the team that we needed to do good did bad, we had to do the opposite emotion. So I know one of them had to do with a late Miami, Florida, and I think Oregon State game. So this was back in the Dennis Erickson or whatever. So in that case, we'll say I think we needed Miami. And if Miami did something good, we'd be like, fuck, oh, this is such bullshit. because he's under the impression that
You
we're
took the
in
other
it with
side.
him and we're booking,
my
right?
God.
So we had to do that for almost 4 hours because I think they went into overtime. And every time Oregon State did something good, Oregon State, we had to fake it. And then
Every time Miami.
yeah, you know what I mean, though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We really were rooting for Miami.
Holy shit!
And when Oregon State did something good, we're high-fiving, drinking, doing shots. Woohoo! This is gonna work out. That sucker, he's gonna owe us a lot of money. But in reality, we were the suckers, right? And so we're faking
you were drinking, you were crying.
and then every time we'd at least go piss or something, we'd be like, bro, I can't keep this up any longer, because sometimes we'd almost like mess up.
Right.
Like, fuck, and he's like, what do you mean? That's good.
You got to justify
And I'm like,
yourself.
fuck, why didn't we take more of a bet? So we had to kind of clean it up, improvise or whatever. And so it was just so funny because it was for 3.5 hours, and then we're getting buzzed and we're trying to make sure we had our emotions right, for the opposite team.
Oh my
But yeah, we
God.
basically had to do it. And then at the end he goes, man, we almost had him. We're like, yeah, we almost had him. Oh well. And then as soon as we walked out the door, him and I are like hugging
Let's
and dancing.
go.
Yeah, I think we did the math. We don't even know him that much, I'm like,
Bro.
so we never told him. He's a really good friend of ours. We never told him, but this story's at least 30 years old. So
So
he won't remember it, I don't think.
No.
Statute of limitations is not a thing.
What he might remember is where we saw it, but I don't know if he'll remember the whole situation. But it was one of those probably where if that game don't hit, we probably may have owed him 6. But because it did, I think it was almost even or
shit, man.
cut it down.
I'm on a current cold streak that it's okay. Hear me out. Is it better to bet parlays, sprinkle your money on parlays, or dump your money onto just a straight bet?
Straight plays are the way to go. All the sharps in town will probably tell you that. However, that said, I play parlays. I still play straight plays, but
For sure.
But the reason I like parlays is because I'm not an official bettor.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe if I did it and did my due diligence, then I would stick with the plan and just do that, right? But because I'm just the guy that hosts MMA here, has a girlfriend, has friends and family, man, I'm just doing stuff last minute. I'm not studying or nothing, right?
Facts.
I just kind of go off basically a hunch or what my buddy tells me. So what I want to do is I want to bet little and win a lot. So, like a $25, $50 5-teamer. And if it hits, you win $2,000. And if you lose, then here's the $50,
Right,
or whatever.
right.
Maybe you probably make a few more
Yeah,
bets.
yeah.
But what I do like to do, and I've done well with, is money line. So when I take the dog, like, for example, just last week, Dallas at Green Bay. Dallas was minus 3.5. Most people would say, oh, well, Dallas is hot, and Green Bay's been sucking. Give me Dallas. Others would go, no. There's a reason the line's that, and a lot of games wind up at 3. Give me Green Bay plus the 3.5. I'm the guy that goes, fuck the points. I'm just going to take Green Bay on the money line.
If it's already that close of a line.
Parlayed
too.
with, you know why? Because when I first started doing the show at Mandalay Bay, I grabbed one of those racing forums or gambling digest. I don't know, right? So I was waiting for my buddy. We were going to go to lunch. And then it was an article that said, I've been having success with money lines. And I started reading. And then he did an in-depth study of the previous 10 years that most of the time when the dog covers, they didn't need the points anyway.
Yeah.
And those times that they didn't need the points,
Fuck.
when they're multiplied over in parlays, they'll make up for the times.
Oh, man.
So let's
That's
say you had
interesting.
Green Bay plus 3.5 and the game was 30 to 29.5. You'd be like, yes, I won, right? And I'd be like, fuck, I lost because I took them on the money line. Well, that's going to happen a few times where I'm going to wish I had taken the
But a
points.
majority of the time.
But then there's going to be some other times where my money line play is going to, I only need to win 5 of those. You need to win 7 of yours. So
For
you
sure.
see what I'm saying?
No,
and when you multiply it over,
that's interesting.
that's
Yeah.
why you can get $25, $50 parlays that pay like $2,000 because of that. You can't do too many money lines,
For sure.
but you can do a couple. And I like
Points
to call myself
matter.
the new MLK, money line king.
Oh, you heard it here first. MLK is in the building. George Garcia, thank you so much for being on, man. This was
Thanks
awesome.
for having me, guys.
Yep. Make sure you guys go and follow MMA Junkie Radio and follow Gridiron Junkies on all platforms. We've hit 3,000 YouTube subscribers. The next goal is 4,000. I want to get to that before we hit the new year, and then possibly 5,000 by the time the Super Bowl happens. Realistic goals. Realistic goals. We're going to make it happen because you guys keep sharing, liking, commenting. If you like me personally, follow me at Mr. George Carmona. If you like Austin, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at AlvarezProdLV.
And I plugged them earlier.
Yeah, you can find me.
And I plugged.
No, you can find me and all of my spooky friends at The Truly Bizarre on Instagram, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Boom. Sticky Paws Studios is where we're recording out of. If you want Sticky Paws merch, the link will be in the bio. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back possibly to do a live stream today. Thad's Thoughts for Thursday night. And we'll be back in the studio Sunday night with Cameron to do a recap of what happened this weekend. George Carmona, Gridiron Junkies. I'm out.